Good morning and welcome to the virtual service of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. My name is Spence Foscue and I'm a member of the Board of Trustees. Here at UUCSP, we are a group of folks who feel that each person has worth and should be treated with dignity, justly and compassionately, and whose own path of spiritual growth is respected and encouraged along with a search for truth and meaning, rooted in democratic, with a small d, principles, aiming towards the goal of fostering a peaceful and just world community, respecting the interdependent web of all existence which we are a part of. That was the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism in one sentence, something I've always wanted to do. And when there's an 8th principle, it should fit right in. Right now, I'd like to thank the staff, the Board of Trustees, committees, and the volunteers who help us on a daily basis in functioning as a loving and caring congregation during this time of trial. Blessings be, and let the service begin.
Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom. We strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. And our opening words today are from the great poet T.S. Eliot. What we call a beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring shall be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Please join in singing our opening hymn, To See the World. The words for this hymn are from the great poet William Blake, number 398. Now is the time in our service for joys and sorrows.
My joy is that our grandpa is getting new baby ducks.
Hi, I'm Kara, and I'm Evan's wife. And my joy today is that I have officially begun a commercial flower farm producing flowers. You just want to say?
I'm happy for her because it rained a lot yesterday, and I'm happy for her because it makes her plants grow.
And I have one more joy that was emailed in for last week that I missed, so I apologize. This joy comes from Ruth Levinson, and she says her joy is that for the first time since the pandemic began and UU services have been entirely virtual, through the miracle of the internet, she was able to watch the new member service on her brand new Lifeline SafeLink wireless phone. She said she wasn't sure if it was going to be able to handle the Zoom coffee hour, but she'll be trying that out soon. The battery on her old phone was overheating and not holding a charge for 6 months, so finally they approved a replacement. She's grateful for the friendships made at the UU gatherings, and she thanks Helen Bell for helping with her generosity and friendship and much needed car ride home while her car waited for needed repairs. She drove her car home 2 Fridays ago after it passed inspection. She says that she's 70 years old and did not drive any car since late November 2019. That's the longest vacation she's taken from guiding a vehicle since she got her learner's permit at age 15. She's grateful for Mountain Mobility Public Transportation in Black Mountain and Buncombe County, which runs Monday through Saturday and is totally fare-free. Ruth looks forward to the pandemic ending so that we can see the UU family friends in person again. She wishes everyone good health and her greatest wealth in truth. Thanks, Ruth. And again, sorry for the delay.
And now just a few words to introduce our speaker, who is not a stranger to our pulpit. He has been here many times before. But for those who don't know him, the Reverend Chris Andrews, he's a lifelong resident of Louisiana, except for some time in graduate school, and he had a work assignment in England at one point. He was formerly a minister in the United Methodist Church for 42 years at the First United Methodist Church in Baton Rouge for many of those years. Chris is a creation spirituality theologian. He now leads a group called Jubilee Pioneers, an eclectic group of folks in Baton Rouge seeking ways to practice good religion. It's connected to Jubilee in Asheville. The defining marks of this accepting community are similar to those of the Unitarian Universalists: love and compassion, and all are welcomed regardless of creed, color, orientation, or any other label.
Greetings to all my friends at Swannanoa Unitarian Church in Black Mountain, North Carolina. It's nice to be with you again, even if it is virtually. I hope that you're doing well, that you had a good year. I always remember with fondness my opportunities to be with you and to share in your congregation, such a warm and inviting community. So thank you for having me. And thanks to Robbie Madden for the good work that she does in putting this particular service into some semblance of order. So we begin with a meditation, and I offer a poem by the wonderful poet Mary Oliver. Hear then these words. Truly we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs, how rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch, and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, look, and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. A meditation from the poet Mary Oliver.
And now is the time for our offertory. You may submit your donation online, and it's for the good of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Swannanoa Valley. Our next hymn is number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire.
I thought that today we could explore a theme of exploring. I am a creation spirituality oriented person, and in the matrix of creation spirituality, we follow the vias, these paths that we can take and that correspond to the quarters of the year. Summertime is the time for the via positiva. It's the path of yes, the path that invites us to jump into life with all that we have and to really go for broke. Living fully, loving without reserve, daring to work for justice. And one way of thinking about this way of living is to consider the excitement of exploring, to see what's out there, and to discover new ways and new paths to follow. Now, when you think about it, exploring seems to be in the DNA of everything. A calf is born, and as soon as it emerges from its mother, it begins to explore, struggles to stand up and take those first tentative, shaky steps, begins to root around its mother's body until it finds her udder and takes nourishment. A baby, as soon as she or he is able to move on its own, is constantly exploring, reaching out their hands to pick up something, usually to put it in their mouths, exploring taste, looking, touching. And even plants seem to want to explore. A vine stretches its tendrils, wrapping them around a tree and up on into the branches, always reaching for more, always exploring what's out there. Now, humans take this exploring to a new level. We soar into space, we dive into oceans, we sail off into the unknown, exploring, looking, seeking. There is in us a great curiosity about the mystery of life. And really, when we explore, we're most alive. It's interesting that we name our exploring ships or vehicles after our deepest values, like Perseverance and Challenger and Explorer and Intrepid. We seem to always be on the hunt for something, almost desperate to explore the big problems, searching for the right answers, like the scientists and doctors are doing right now as they search for a vaccine for this COVID-19 virus. At Jubilee in Asheville, there was a song recently that captures this exploring spirit that resides deep within us, and the song said in part this: "It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever fully knowing why. It's in every one of us, by and by." And another song in that same service had these words: "You don't have to be a hero, just lean toward the light. And if we all pull a little, we'll pull through. So long as I am here, I'll be here for you." Exploring. So much to discover, so little time. Never lose a holy curiosity, said the great scientist Albert Einstein. So we're each called to our own journey to the fullness of life, And life is always nudging us. Life is inviting you to explore. So how would it change your life to dance and to party with life? An inner voice speaks, it whispers, it's time to go. And I think of that old wanderer, Abraham, leaving his country and all that was familiar to go forth on a blessing journey. What would a blessing journey look like in your life? What wildernesses are there waiting for you to discover the rich excitement that they contain? The via positiva, this way of yes, invites you to step on the path and to explore the possibilities. Because the divine shows up like a great kaleidoscope. We turn it and it manifests itself in a gajillion species in every rock and every leaf, and it says, let's explore. The divine is always evolving, and so are we. When we open ourselves up for this delight, who knows what blessing we will discover around just the next bend in the road. The entire Hebrew Christian saga begins with one man who was willing to explore. His name is Abraham. And at the age of 75, get that, at the age of 75, when most people are wanting to settle down, he had a sense, an inner prompting that it was time to go. Time to leave the familiar and the known and to walk into the unknown. And the Bible says simply, so Abraham went, and the Lord was with him. Think of your own life. How many times have you thought you would like to do this or that, to go here or there? But in the end, you never moved, you never took a step. What if we were made to be explorers and not settlers? Sufi mystic Kabir offers these challenging words. Friend, hope for the guest while you're alive. Jump into the experience while you're alive. Think and think while you are alive. What you call salvation belongs to the time before death. If you don't break your ropes while you are alive, do you think ghost will do it after? The idea that the soul will join with the ecstatic just because the body is rotten, that's all fantasy. What is found now is found then. If you find nothing new, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death. If you make love with the divine now, in the next life, you will have the face of satisfied desire. YOLO is a trademark for a company that makes products for outside activities. YOLO stands for You Only Live Once. And the Via Positiva challenges us to remember this truth and this slogan and to jump headfirst into the mystery of life as it is happening right now, because it is so easy to simply exist and to never live, to have enough food and shelter, but never savor or enjoy anything. And unfortunately, this seems to be the situation for so many Americans. So many are holed up in suburban deserts, living small lives of quiet misery, surrounded by everything that one could need, but souls starving on a diet of banality. We're not meant to simply exist. We're meant to fly, to soar, to dance, to rejoice. And that's what this particular path is all about. Jumping headfirst into the fullness of life, come what may. Some years ago, a book titled Jonathan Livingston Seagull rose to the bestseller list because it struck a nerve deep in the psyche of people. You may remember that story. Jonathan is a seagull who refuses to act like other seagulls. He wants to soar like an eagle or a hawk. And his inspiration is that he has the courage to try to do just that. He is alive, he's daring, and he offers a story that inspires. Literature is full of stories like this. And why? Because the stories both diagnose and prescribe for a soul sickness that infects so many. The diagnosis is that too many underlive, and the prescription is that you can go for the gold. There's nothing holding you back except your own timidity. I once had a teacher, Douglas Hall, from Canada, who asked this very poignant question: what if sin is not living it up? What if sin is standing timidly at the edge of life, refusing to jump into life? What if that is sin? How would that change your idea about sin? What will you do with your one wild and precious life? Asked the poet Mary Oliver. What would you do if you could do anything? Asked the ancient muse that lives in all of us. It's not a timid question. And I've often pushed that question aside. saying that I didn't have time for it right now. But the question will not be silenced. It returns always because it's a question prompted by the great creator of life, who wants only for those who bear the holy image of the divine to live as fully and courageously and as graciously as it does. We should not be afraid of life, but I fear that many are. That's what prompted writer Sam Keene to ask, why do we prefer known hells to untried heavens? Open both eyes. Lean forward toward the light as you're able to see it. Live. This invitation is the great grace that pours from the heart of love, and it's offered to every one of us. The Via Positiva invites us to make the credo of the noted writer Jack London our own. Jack London wrote these words, put them on a little card, and somewhere in his home it stands on a little stand that tourists often look at. And these are the words: I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than that it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy, permanent planet. The functions of humans is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days trying to prolong them. I will use my time. When he was asked what he thought about Jack London's words, the great late Kenny Stabler, that NFL quarterback with the Oakland Raiders, the New Orleans Saints, and perhaps some other teams, pondered for a minute those words that said, I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than that it should be stifled by dry rot. I want to be every atom of me aglow, like a superb meteor. Kenny Stabler reflected, he thought, he pondered, and he said to the question, what do those words mean? He said, they mean throw deep. Throw deep. And that's what we images of the divine should always do with our lives. Throw deep by loving passionately, giving generously, striving for justice always. I have a book in my library that's titled Laughter in the Walls. It's a short book, only 47 pages, written by a man named Bob Benson, who's unfortunately deceased. And it's really just a compilation of some of Mr. Benson's journal entries. But he wrote them with wit and wisdom, and the book has inspired me over the years. And one of the excerpts is titled, I Never Took a Step. It reads like this. It was Pioneer Day. Our town's answer to the Rose Parade, the All-Star Game, the World's Fair, and Mardi Gras all rolled into one colorful but tiring day. Between helping with the fish fry and the All-Star Games and getting parades organized, it was a very, very busy day. And now I was on the sidewalk, camera ready, focused for my son Mike, who would come clowning down the street with a troop of clowns. I waded through bands and army tanks, ponies, majorettes, and floats, but no sign of Mike. So I waded through motorcycles and drill teams and Indians and stray dogs and a dozen other clowns, but still no Mike. I finally found Mike at the parade's dispersal. His face was a combination of freckles, grease paint, perspiration, and shame. I chickened out, he said. How far did you ride? I asked. I never took a step, was his answer. And then Mr. Benson reflects, suddenly I remembered days that I'd started out with high resolve to carry love's banner in the procession of life. And nights found me defeated, discouraged, ashamed, knowing that I'd never taken a step. And remembering the flood of compassion, mercy, and kindness and grace that love gave, I said to Mike, there will be other days and other parades. You're still the finest clown that I know. And Mike's face burst into smiles and my heart burst into song. And for a moment, I knew the joy of Christ-like grace. That joy is the joy of one who said, blessed are the poor in spirit, who also said that you and I are to be the light and the salt of the world. Perfect people? No, we're not. Sometimes grossly incompetent people. Sometimes people who feel so inept. And yet, to us come the words, be light, be salt in this world. You and I are called to walk a challenging path. It's the way of love and compassion. It's never easy to follow it. There is always going to be resistance. A few weeks ago, a friend of mine who is a state senator in Mississippi was featured live on YouTube, and I watched this whole episode. As the Mississippi Senate weighed the question of whether or not they would remove the Confederate symbol from their state flag. And this young man, whose marriage I was privileged to officiate at some years ago, whose family's dear friends of mine, stood and courageously said the time had come to do that this was the right thing to do. This was what they must do as leaders in the noble state of Mississippi. It was amazing the pushback that came from the gallery. The people who resisted, who asked silly, inane questions, who tried to play little political games. But this young man stood firm. He took all the questions, he answered them with respect, with wisdom, and at the end of the day, he carried the banner of love over the goal line. And Mississippi voted to remove that emblem of hate from its state flag. Now, this young man could not have done what he did. He could have said, it's time for someone else to carry that banner. He could have, but he didn't. He stepped in and he stepped out. And that's what people who say yes to life do. I wonder, is it time for you to step up and step out in response to some inner nudging in the depth of your heart? Is it a response to the divine who is always working for one thing, which is to bring you to the fullness of life? Is it time to become an explorer, like you were when you were young, and believe that you could do or become anything that you wanted to? Is it time? I think it might be time. And so I invite you, dear congregation, what can you go and explore? What new discoveries are out there for you to make that will in turn bless the world and might make life better for all?
Our closing hymn is number 130, O Liberating Rose. Please join us.
It's a delight to share these thoughts with you today, and I wish you the very best and hope someday soon that we can do something like this in person. Until then, let me offer these closing words. Be reminded that you are the candle in someone else's darkness, that you may just have the word of redemption that makes a difference in some burdened life, that you are the one who is called upon in this moment to live with the fullness of your gifts, sharing your talents, and allowing love to flow through you. To explore what this means by saying yes, a deep yes, to the great and holy mystery that life is perhaps to live the best life that any person ever could. So be bold as explorers and live your lives well, and may you be blessed. Thank you so much for this opportunity.